I'm Espen Grimstad. I am a platform or subsurface data platform manager as of last 1st of February, so things change. We live in an agile world. I used to be in technology and digitalization. Now I'm in sales and services, so we're taking a project from being a project to being a product and following the product ownership and actually putting a product owner to it. I want to talk today not about my project, but another one that we're doing, and particularly on maturing governance and succeeding with the adoption of data operations for us. I suspect not all of you know what or who PGS is, so I need to have a little introduction of that. So I'll do that, and then I'll talk about our digital transformation journey so far, and approaches we have done to manage the governance and succeed with the ever important user adoption. So PGS, we are a Oslo headquartered company. We turned 30 years last year, so we're not a young pup anymore in this regard. We're about just shy of 1,000 employees on a global basis, headquarters in Oslo. We also have offices in Houston and in the UK and some other few locations, smaller offices. We are a seismic acquisition and imaging company, fully integrated. It means we have the vessels, we acquire the data, we process the data, and we sell the data. So, but we also generate data for ourselves, but mostly our business is to sell the data that we acquire. We basically have two main business models when selling the data. There's either contract data or multi-client data. Now, contract data is when Total, Equinor, Shell, BP, all these guys, they come to you and say, we want you to explore what's happening on the seabed in this area here, and we want to purchase that data. So we go out and do that. We give them the data afterwards, and that's the last we see of that data. That data is theirs, and they can do whatever they like with it. They get the raw files, they get the final products, and everything. Then we have what we call multi-client data. That's data that we can license. We acquire it on our cost sometimes. Sometimes it's also pre-funded, the surveys. But we acquire the data, and then we license it out to customers, the same type of customers, right? That means we take a portion of the data and sell it to Total, a second portion of the data and sell it to Equinor, and so on and so forth. So, but we own the rights to the data, but we license it out for normally for perpetuity. But I won't talk so much more about that, but with the digitalization journey is now allowing us to generate and create new business models around licensing this data. But that's another talk next time, perhaps. We're four business areas, sales and services, where I'm right now. So again, the multi-client and contract, and that's where imaging is located as well. Those are the ones processing the data we acquire out in the vessels. We have operations that are effectively operating the vessels and all the assets that we have. And currently we're having 6 3D vessels. The 3D vessels means they're equipped with more equipment and more streamers that put in the water that can create then eventually a 3D image of the subsurface when they're done. The other alternative is a 2D, where you only get a small profile over a certain area. Normally, a company like an energy company will do a 2D survey before they come in and do a 3D survey. So there's different types of data. Then we have technology and digitalization. And under there is R&D, enterprise IT, and a small digitalization portfolio. We have kept it under the technology and digitalization is a relatively new group. We recognize that digitalization efforts and EIT is an important part of who we are. We are a technology company, so that needs to be recognized in the business areas. Lastly, we also have new energy. Like it or not, we all enjoy our standards of living. We need to have energy going forward. Renewables cannot replace this in the very near term, so there still is a room for oil and gas out there. But we need to also be sustainable and contribute to the energy transition, so we are focusing more and more on providing data to the new energy domain, be it wind, be it CCSU, and even seabed mining, if you like. They all need our type of data that we acquire, so we just need to tweak our data on how we collect it, and then it will be a commodity for them. Yeah, some numbers. We're sort of just north of 800 million in revenues. Everybody who's heard about oil and gas is extremely cyclical. If it goes well for Equinor and Exxon and these guys, we're usually trailing behind, and if oil price drops, then we are the first ones they drop as well. So then we notice that right away. Revenues for 2021 was not this much, I'll tell you that. And market capital also is adjusting thereafter. So it's a little bit important to stay a little bit on this. So this is one of our vessels, one of the newer ones. They're kind of purpose-built for what we do. They give us a platform to deploy and recover the gear. And the spread that we are deploying in the water is quite sizable. The vessels are very oddly shaped for making them very quietly running through the water. So it's optimization for the acquisition of the data. So what we do, we tow these streamers with hydrophones and geophones in the water. The spread, as we call it, the multiple, the streamers can be quite large. If you were to sort of take that and the spread and the footprint of the spread, it would cover about twice the size of Hyde Park, right? Quite large areas. So about 10 kilometers long and about 1.5 to 2 kilometers wide. That's a quite large moving object. That also means that quite a lot of data is generated every day. And these vessels, we try at least as much as we can to be 24/7. So the actual data that we sell is, I call it the squiggly lines. I'm not a geophysicist, but I call it the squiggly lines. There's the black and white data you see there. That's the data we acquire and sell. But on the streamers, on the yellow you see here, there's a lot of instruments that register data. The vessel has all its engines and all that stuff also connected, so it's generating a lot of data. So again, there's two types of data, the seismic data and the user-generated data. We'll focus on the user-generated data today and how we're sort of trying to solve problems for ourselves with that. But I want to mention the three main digital initiatives in PGS. It's Digital Factory, which I'm going to talk about today, which is mostly looking at the user-generated data or financial data or other types of internal data, not seismic, to develop use cases and develop new products that can be used internally to improve our efficiency or cut cost. Then we have the project I'm actually heading up, or product as it is now, is the multi-client data on demand. We're putting all our seismic data in the cloud. We're using Cognite Data Fusion to contextualize that data together with all the metadata of that. And we use the open and public documented APIs to connect clients, and they can stream the data straight from our data lakes or subsurface data lake into their site. And this is large amounts of data. I mean, that's just the deliverable set in the multi-client set is a couple of petabytes of data. And that's all sitting in the cloud. We're now moving into a more rawer stage of data, and then we talk about maybe 10 petabytes of data, and then you can go to field data, and then, I don't know, it's sitting on tapes, it's sitting on site in silos, on tapes, and storage, everywhere else, right? So it's a lot of data. Lastly, it's PGS EOS, which is a imaging in the cloud. So we've taken the 80% of the imaging, the processing of the seismic data, and converted them to cloud-native functions, basically, using Google Cloud. That's quite compute-intensive work. Up until a few years ago, we had the biggest, or one of the top, I can't remember, 5 or 10 on-prem computers. It's called Cray. That was decommissioned last year, on time and on budget, I was going to say, and 80% of that compute power was put in the cloud. It's enough compute power to get mentioned in Google Talks around the world, and we peaked at, I think it was 2.8 million virtual CPUs during one of these runs. Again, not going to be able to talk too much more about that, unfortunately, but it's a large-scale So both Digital Factory and Solis are using contextualizing data using Cognite CDF for that. Two different flavors of CDF, but still backbone is CDF. So our digital transformation journey so far started a couple of years back. Start small, right? One guy, 50%. My former boss was sort of saying, can you go off and sort of just manage the little project, a couple of use cases for one vessel. That lasted 6 months, and they realized this is extremely scalable. Obviously, just scaling it to the vessels, but on the number of use cases, so he was permanently transferred into this project, and the little group called the digitalization group was formed. We signed agreements with Google and Cognite, and that's more than finding a technology provider. That's finding a partner in doing this journey with you. You can pick technology, you can pick platforms, but you don't find a partner that can do the journey with you, that can help you on the transformation that comes with this, you're not getting the full value. But that we did. So that was kickstarted back in 2019. We started educating ourselves and the organization on agile working. Agile working. And in 2020, we sort of solidified this and established these 3 projects. Digital Factory, with the 3 use cases. Solis started up, and EOS had the first production run. Now EOS, all the compute on the cloud, that's all done in-house. The Digital Factory and the Solis, we were contracting out some of the development work and the ingestion pipeline work to companies that we work closely with to do this. And literally the journey is just sort of the list gets a bit longer, so it's actually just scaling up as we go out. We're not done, even though this chart stops at last year. We will continue, and it will grow even more. As I said, EOS will move all its compute power into the cloud. We will move to having more data in the cloud in terms of seismic, and we'll create more use cases for the Digital Factory. Oops. Yeah, so Digital Factory. Getting the purpose of the project extremely important. I think it was mentioned in all these talks I've heard about today, and somebody, my thunder has been stolen several times here, I think. But there won't be a revelation for you then. So, but we're working agile, right? Has been important. So start small, do the iterations, present the results, involve the stakeholders, and grow the project after that. Extremely important to have cross-functional teams, both internally in PGS, between the business areas to grow the business and to create the business buy-in, but also cross-functionally, so with partners like Cognite and Google and other contractors that can help us out on this. Yeah, finding the right technology and learning new ways of working is part of the journey here. So right now the Digital Factory has, they started off with 3 use cases. It's now 10 use cases in sustaining, and there's still 5 they're working on, and there's a big hopper or a large hopper of other use cases that we can implement. Just a little bit, I have no idea if this is large amounts in anybody's regards, but I'm thinking in just 2.5 to 3 years' time, we collected quite a few. And this is only the user-generated data, so nothing about the seismic. This is all about the instruments sitting on the streamers, or the vessel, the speed, or the engine propulsion, or fuel consumption, all that stuff. And obviously, if we bring out more vessels, because we have more vessels, some of them are stacked now, but we can bring out more vessels if the capacity is needed, and then this just scales up. But you can't do the scaling unless you have a good platform to start the scaling on in terms of number of data. You can just feed it up. But defining the use cases, I mean, this is a learning on our side, right? We thought a little bit sort of, we will try this out, and someone would just sit down and start, making it work. But defining the use cases and trying to answer these four simple questions here on the left. What is the problem you're trying to solve? And we are technical people, so we immediately went down to I want it to look like this, I want it to do that, rather than actually spending time in defining and articulating the problem you're trying to solve. It's taken a long time. You're talking with people in operations, they go straight to, oh, you want to do this, we want to do that. No. Define what problem you're trying to solve, get that down on paper, talk it with your colleagues in your own business area, and then we can define the use case for it, and we'll take it to a portfolio board, which is consisting of people from all over the organization. Even the CFO sits in that portfolio board, and they review the use cases. They're coming in and say, thumbs up or thumbs down, right? Extremely important. You can start on this, and we've done all these mistakes several times, but coming back to actually defining that and answering these 4 simple questions. What's the problem you're trying to solve? What business value will it bring? What does success look like? And how does it link to our strategy? So if you can do that, and you actually make the use case owner sit in the business line, engaging internally, getting the buy-in from there, then you're much better set up for success. Once you started that, there's a journey, right? And it's a journey about communication. So you need to be transparent about it. You need to communicate the use case, the information about it, the value it's going to bring, over and over and over and over again. You cannot talk enough about it, but you have to talk about it in different ways. It means, putting up a site on your online portal. You do demos in public, in a sense. You have the CEO talk about it in the town halls. You write articles, you invite people to Teams meetings. Be transparent and open about it. This is not your little secret, that project that you're working on. You need to be telling people about it. Extremely important, that we found. So I put up 7 times there. I think that's absolute minimum. 7 times, 7 different ways in different communications about the use case. Then things are starting to stick, but only then. Are we succeeding? I think we are. One use case was optimizing the vessel speed. The crew on the vessels change out every 5 and 6 weeks. Full set of new crew. They come with their little quirks. I know my boat, I know the crew, I'll do it this way, right? They know the client, or they may not know the client, they know the different contracts and stuff. They all had a different way. So you see there's variability, and keeping the speed on the vessels, for instance, at the level pace or the optimal speed in terms of fuel consumption, what kind of contract you're on, and all these stuffs, was very difficult. So we saw there was a use case here for actually optimizing the speed. So the crew out there who's sort of seeing the controlling the vessel, they sort of have to find, there's so many parameters to relate to. They couldn't decipher it all. So they needed some kind of visibility, some kind of dashboard. So there's 2 dashboards here shown. I think they're both using some kind of no code or even low code or from Cognite. The top one is an overview of all the vessels as they're in production, and this we're showing around in the PGS offices. Anybody can go in there, so you're very transparent on what the speed is, what the vessels are doing. The lower one is sort of a speed dashboard that the guys on the vessels use themselves. So they can actually look at it, and becomes very transparent whether what's your limitation for going a little bit faster, because the faster we go, usually we get to the next project quicker, and it's a higher turnaround. So you want to keep that speed. I mean, you're thinking about a vessel that going 24/7. If you increase the speed from 4.2 to 4.5 knots, doesn't seem a whole lot, and it's not very fast, but over time, that's a lot of money. And by the way, if you remember the spread of the vessel, of the equipment, makes it a very long time to turn the vessels around. So we're spending sometimes in some projects more time turning the vessel around, 2 or 3 hours, just turning the vessel around to get to the next line. You want to keep that speed up. You want to be sure that the guy who's controlling the speed has all the information and the right information to optimize the speed. ROI has been mentioned, a 5% speed increase. I think is respectable in this regard. More consistent, or perhaps more important, that I have a consistent and predictable speed leads to fuel efficiency and, on the ESG perspective, less emissions and obviously less cost for us. So win-win. The other one is HSE Q categorizer. Now, all the crews on the vessels have KPIs on registering if they see something safe and unsafe. When I was offshore, I did 10 years offshore in my early days in PGS. This was all on paper. This little carton based on the DuPont system. You wrote down if you saw the person not wearing a life jacket or not a helmet or something like that. You wrote it down, a few little tick boxes and a little free text, right? That's all good, right? Localized on the vessel, they have control of that, they register how many cards and all that stuff. And even if you do it digitally, right? Register all this, you can see trends locally on the vessel if the pirate chief has the time and effort to do it. So if we can take that information, especially the free text information, and put some AI on that, collected all the data, put some AI on and see if there's trends there. See if there's anything that stands out. And as it turned out, there was a high degree of cards mentioning a personal location beacon, personal locator beacon, sorry, that's mounted in the life jackets of the crew when they're working on the deck. That means if the crew should fall overboard, God forbid, it's much easier to find them if these locator beacons are functioning. We actually saw there was a trend of cards identifying these beacons wrongfully mounted or not working at all. But in isolation on one vessel, that wasn't really visible. When you aggregated over all the vessels, it became as a pattern. So we told and informed the manufacturer of the beacon and the life jackets about this malfunction. And they fixed the equipment and made themselves a better product and made ourselves better and made better safety for the crew. And nothing beats some external validation, and this use case actually won I think it's a European sort of thing, Verdantics Innovation Excellence Awards in last year. And the data generated and sort of AI is all sort of showing just a Power BI dashboard here, very simple, but it really brings out the information in the data. All right. Well, last slide, just summarizing. Identify and articulate the problem, extremely important. Ensure collaboration across the company and the business. And the business value then comes from the scalability. You have a good platform, a good starting point, then you can scale it. There's all this other data coming in all the time, but you need to be able to scale it out to the vessels and internally in the business. So, thank you very much.